Okay, let's dive into the var keyword. So, what is it? Well, the var keyword is one of three keywords used to declare a variable. Well, what makes it unique? Var is function scoped, which means if it's inside of a function, only that function has access to it. Var is also hoisted, so the var declaration is hoisted to the top of the function or global scope, but its initialized value is not, so it will have a default value of undefined. You can reference the variable, but it will not result in the expected value until we hit the line where we declared the variable. Also, after declaring a variable using var, it can be changed at a later time or reassigned. And in some ways, var is considered outdated compared to let or const. Great, now let's look at some code syntax. So we can declare a variable using the var keyword, followed by the name of the variable. And here I'll do var fruit equals apple. And if I log the value of the fruit on a later line, I'll see that the output is apple. All right, on to some theoretical questions. The most common theoretical questions I see for var involves describing the differences between var, let, and const. We'll have a comparison video after we cover all three. However, you might be asked for some of the definitions we covered earlier. This might be in the form of a question like, what is the scope of var? And you'd want to say it's function scoped. You might also be asked how var behaves during variable hoisting. And you can say something like the variable declaration is hoisted to the top of its scope, but if we try to access the variable before it's been declared, it will result in an undefined value. And then you might also be asked, when would you want to use var? And in modern JavaScript, you would typically not use var and instead use let or const. But you could still use var for legacy code or in situations where you want a function scope. Okay, on to some coding questions. So a common question that you might get will look something like this, where we have a console log of the variable above the declaration and then below the declaration. And you'll be asked to explain what the outputs would be. So this ties back to what we just went over. The variable declaration has been hoisted to the top, but the value is undefined. So the first log will be undefined. And now for the second log, because it is below the line of code where the variable was declared, we will log the value assigned here for fruit, which is apple. Another question you might see would look something like this, and you'll be asked to explain what the output would be. Now, you might think that this would log an error, but because var is function scoped and is hoisted to the top of the function, we will have access to the variable and we will log R awesome. Finally, a question you might see will involve a for loop and inside of it a set timeout, which is logging values. The question will be, what will the output be of the following? Now, what's going to happen is the loop will finish before the set timeout is completed. And because we are using var to declare I is function scoped, and every single callback function inside of set timeout will have access to the same I value, which will be 5, or the value of I once the loop is finished. So there's only one I variable for the entire loop, and not a different variable at each iteration. So it's going to log 5, 5, 5, 5. And I know this is tricky and we don't get the expected value we might think we'd get, but we can take a look at how a different variable declaration can fix this due to it having a different type of scope. And we'll take a look at that in the next episode. Thanks and have a great day.